As their eyes met, a flicker of shock crossed Eleanor's face. Her hands trembled as she hurriedly scrubbed the floor, her head lowering in shame. Isabella stepped forward, a wicked smirk playing on her lips. A tale of betrayal, revenge, and redemption, where fate twists cruelly and the final move belongs to Isabella. But we start the video, let us know where you're watching this video, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe Story Store, and please share your thoughts about this story in comment section. The grand chandelier above the ballroom cast dazzling golden light over the extravagant guests. The air buzzed with laughter and whispers of the wealthy elite. Crystal glasses clinked, and delicate music from a string quartet wove through the chatter. Isabella Street. Claire, draped in an exquisite sapphire gown, held her champagne flute with practiced elegance. From the outside, she was the picture of grace and confidence. But beneath the polished surface, her heart thundered in her chest. This night was years in the making. Across the room, kneeling on the cold marble floor, was Eleanor. The woman who had once been her best friend, the woman who had stolen everything from her. But fate, ever unpredictable, had twisted their stories. Eleanor was no longer an esteemed guest at the gala. She was a maid, a servant, scrubbing away spilled wine beneath the feet of those who once admired her. Isabella stepped forward, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Eleanor looked up, and for a fleeting second raw shock flared in her eyes before she hurriedly lowered her gaze, hands trembling as she scrubbed harder. A slow, knowing smile curled Isabella's lips. "Well, well," she mused, her voice silky with mock sympathy. "What a surprise, Eleanor. I never imagined I'd see you here, like this." Eleanor stiffened but didn't respond. Around them, curious gazes turned toward the unfolding scene. The elite thrived on whispers, on the rise and fall of those in their circle. And tonight they were witnessing a spectacle they never expected. Isabella Street. Claire standing tall while Eleanor, once the queen of deception, was reduced to nothing. Fate had been patient, and tonight Isabella intended to savor every second of her long-awaited reckoning. This was only the beginning. Years ago, Isabella Street Claire had everything: a thriving career in the world of high finance, a devoted fiancé, and a reputation as one of the most brilliant minds in her circle. She was poised for greatness, admired, respected, and then Eleanor happened. Eleanor Sinclair had been more than a friend. She had been a sister in all but blood. They had shared secrets, dreams, and ambitions. But underneath Eleanor's warm smiles lurked envy, a poison that grew with every success Isabella achieved. The betrayal was slow, deliberate. Eleanor planted fabricated evidence of fraud in Isabella's office, ensuring that whispers of financial misconduct reached the right ears. Overnight, Isabella was accused, disgraced, and dismissed from her prestigious firm. While she fought to clear her name, Eleanor moved swiftly, comforting Isabella's devastated fiancé, weaving lies that painted Isabella as untrustworthy, manipulative. Soon, he was no longer hers. The final blow came when Isabella's social circle, the very people who had once toasted to her successes, turned their backs on her, swallowing Eleanor's carefully crafted rumors. Alone, jobless, and heartbroken, Isabella fled. Eleanor had taken her place, her job, her fiancé, her life. But fate had a way of keeping score, and Isabella was not one to be defeated. Rock bottom wasn't an ending. For Isabella, it was a rebirth. With nothing left, she vanished from the world that had cast her out. She traveled across continents, learning, rebuilding, sharpening her mind like a weapon. She studied business strategies, forged new connections, and played the long game with ruthless precision. The woman who returned was not the same naive girl who had been betrayed. She was colder, sharper, untouchable. From the shadows she watched Eleanor. At first, Eleanor thrived. She reveled in her stolen victory, living in luxury, basking in high society's praise. But cracks soon formed. The man she had stolen, Isabella's former fiancé, uncovered the truth of her deception. He left her, shattering the illusion of her perfect life. Eleanor, now desperate to maintain control, made reckless financial moves, leading to the slow collapse of the empire she had stolen. Isabella waited, and when the moment was right, she struck. A few well-placed business deals, whispers to the right investors, and a perfectly timed scandal ensured Eleanor's downfall. In months, her fortune crumbled. The once adored socialite became an outcast. With no other options, Eleanor found herself in need of a job. Isabella made sure there was only one available, serving as a maid in the very mansion Isabella now owned. The game had only just begun. Isabella had spent years planning Eleanor's downfall, and when the time came, it was effortless. A few whispered words in the right ears, a few strategically placed financial missteps, and Eleanor's empire crumbled like a house of cards. At first, Eleanor fought. She tried to charm her way back into society, pleading with former allies. But the wealthy elite were fickle creatures. They abandoned her as swiftly as they had once adored her. The scandal was too great, the embarrassment too severe. Then came the debt collectors, the lawsuits, the eviction notices. In mere months, Eleanor lost everything. Isabella watched it all unfold with cold satisfaction. But she wasn't finished yet. Destroying Eleanor's reputation wasn't enough. She wanted her to feel what it meant to be powerless, to have her dignity stripped away just as Isabella's had been. So she orchestrated the final blow. A carefully manipulated job offer, one that seemed to come from a nameless staffing agency, but was, in truth, Isabella's doing. It was the only offer Eleanor could take, the last scrap of survival left to her. And so, the once glamorous Eleanor Sinclair, who had once sipped champagne alongside the elite, now found herself scrubbing floors in Isabella's grand mansion, wearing the uniform of a servant. The moment Isabella saw Eleanor in that maid's dress for the first time, she felt an intoxicating thrill. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about control. But as she stared into Eleanor's burning, defiant eyes, a strange feeling settled in her chest. This was only the beginning. And Isabella knew Eleanor would not go down without a fight. Eleanor's hands trembled as she smoothed down the stiff fabric of her maid's uniform. The corset dug into her ribs, the heavy skirt suffocating compared to the silk gowns she once wore. The grand estate around her, the one she used to visit as a guest, was now her prison. She swallowed her pride and stepped into the candlelit dining hall. At the head of the long, polished table sat Isabella. Draped in elegance, she swirled a glass of wine in her hand, her sapphire gown catching the light. She looked at Eleanor with the same cold amusement a queen might reserve for a fallen rival. "Ah, there you are," Isabella mused. "I was beginning to think you'd forgotten your duties." Eleanor clenched her fists. She wanted to scream, to tear the smirk off Isabella's face. But she had no choice, not tonight. She moved to the side of the table, lifting the silver teapot with steady hands. She poured the tea, steam curling into the air. She felt Isabella's gaze burning into her. "Careful now," Isabella murmured. "Wouldn't want to spill. That would be unfortunate." The meaning was clear. A single mistake, and Isabella would make her life even more unbearable. Eleanor bit her tongue and continued serving. The night stretched on, each second heavier than the last. Isabella never outright mocked her, but her words were laced with venom, her every request a test. Eleanor wasn't just here to work. Isabella wanted her to break, but Eleanor refused to shatter. As she cleared the dishes, she caught Isabella's smirk and forced herself to meet her gaze. "Not yet, Isabella," she thought. "You may have won this battle, but the war is far from over." The air in the grand estate shifted the moment he arrived. Eleanor was polishing the silverware when she heard the deep, familiar voice echo through the marble halls. Her hands froze. Her breath caught in her throat. She knew that voice. Ethan, the man she had stolen, the man she had thought would stay by her side forever. She turned just as he stepped into the parlor, his presence commanding, his tailored suit sharp as ever. He hadn't changed. If anything, success had only made him more striking. But something was different. His gaze wasn't filled with admiration when it landed on her. It was unreadable. Then he looked past her, and his expression softened. Isabella. Eleanor clenched her fists as Isabella greeted him with a slow, knowing smile, her sapphire gown shimmering in the firelight. She was radiant, effortless, like a queen welcoming a knight back into her court. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Isabella said, her voice smooth as silk. Ethan's gaze lingered on her. "I had to." Eleanor burned with unspoken rage. She'd fought for him once, had twisted the truth to make him hers. And now he was looking at Isabella as if he had never truly seen her before. From the shadows she watched, her mind racing. If Isabella was planning to take back what had once been hers, Eleanor wouldn't stand idly by. She had lost her fortune, her status, her dignity. But she refused to lose this last piece of her past. Not without a fight. The mansion was no longer the sanctuary Isabella had built. It was becoming a battlefield. Strange things began happening. Documents from her study went missing, only to reappear in the wrong places. Candles flickered without a breeze. Footsteps echoed in empty halls. At first, Isabella dismissed it as paranoia, but then she caught glimpses. Eleanor slipping through corridors late at night, lingering where she had no reason to be. One evening, unable to ignore the unease any longer, Isabella waited in the shadows outside her study. Hours passed, and then a faint creak. Eleanor. She moved with careful precision, rifling through papers, her fingers trembling as she scanned them. "What are you looking for?" Isabella's voice sliced through the silence. Eleanor stiffened but didn't turn. "Something you should have found a long time ago." Isabella stepped closer. "You think you can scare me with theatrics?" Finally, Eleanor faced her, a slow smirk curling her lips. "You don't know the whole story," she whispered. "You never did." For the first time, doubt crept into Isabella's mind. Was Eleanor merely a thief and a traitor? Or was there another enemy lurking in the shadows? Isabella spent the next day searching through every document, every old letter, every forgotten file. She had thought she knew her own downfall, but Eleanor's words haunted her. Then she found it. A name. A familiar, powerful name, one that made her blood run cold. Eleanor hadn't acted alone. Someone else had orchestrated Isabella's ruin. Someone bigger, more dangerous. The betrayal went deeper than she had ever imagined. That night, Isabella confronted Eleanor again. "Tell me everything." Eleanor hesitated, then sighed. "I did take everything from you, but I wasn't the one pulling the strings. You were supposed to disappear forever, and if you keep digging, they'll make sure you do." For the first time in years, Isabella felt fear. She had thought the game was over, but it had only just begun. Eleanor sat across from Isabella in the dimly lit study, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The weight of unspoken truths filled the air between them. "I can give you a name," Eleanor said at last, her voice barely above a whisper. the real mastermind behind your downfall. Isabella leaned forward, studying her former friend's face. And why would you help me? Eleanor let out a bitter laugh. Because they used me too. I thought I was winning when I took everything from you, but I was just a pawn. And now? They've discarded me, just like you. Isabella's fingers drummed against the polished wood. She had waited years for revenge, but this was bigger than just her and Eleanor. If there was another player in the game, she needed to know who it was. You want freedom, Isabella said, but I don't trust you. Eleanor met her gaze. Then don't. But if we want to survive, we have to work together. For the first time in years, they were on the same side, or so it seemed. The grand gala shimmered with wealth and power, but beneath the surface the air crackled with tension. Isabella moved through the crowd like a queen reclaiming her throne. Eleanor stayed close, her role uncertain. Was she an ally or a threat waiting to strike? Then he arrived. The true mastermind. A man who had once been her mentor, a powerful figure who had orchestrated her downfall from the shadows. His name alone was enough to make the elite whisper in fear. Isabella raised her glass, surprised to see me. His smirk barely faltered. You should have stayed gone. The trap was already set. Documents, hidden truths, and whispered confessions were strategically placed to detonate like a scandalous bomb. One slip, one well-placed accusation, and his empire would crumble. And crumble it did. Gasps rippled through the room as Isabella exposed his crimes: fraud, manipulation, betrayal. The elite, once his loyal supporters, turned on him in an instant. But as victory neared, Isabella felt the weight of Eleanor's gaze. Something was wrong. Then Eleanor whispered, I warned you. A final move had yet to be played. Just as the scandal erupted, Eleanor made her move. A hidden truth, a buried secret, a card she had kept close all along. I never told you everything, she said, slipping a document into Isabella's hand. Because I wanted you to owe me. Isabella's breath caught as she read. The betrayal had gone deeper than she ever imagined. Even her revenge had been part of someone else's game, and now she had two choices: destroy Eleanor completely, or let her go, finally breaking the cycle. With the world watching, Isabella made her decision. Fate had played its hand, but the final move was hers.